Welcome to DJNTV and Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Now introducing the one and only Ben Stowe.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. So Ben, what are you looking for?
Cables.
You realize we've got a show on cables, and we usually are so prepared that this is done like hours in advance, right?
Minutes. I have a few to choose from. I'm just kind of looking through my little. Doesn't everybody have a cable bucket?
No. Maybe a bucket of screws and nails. Maybe a bucket of clips.
I have that too.
Clips or mic, but audio connections. That I could see. Cable pieces.
Yeah. Everybody has a hobby.
That's a hobby. Good evening and welcome to our show tonight, Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Tonight, this is going to be a little bit different. We've been doing these little segmented shows with all sorts of information and talking about different things. Tonight, we're digging into one topic and one topic only, and that is what is in Ben Stowe's bucket. We did the suitcase, we did the Ben Stowe's backpack, we did the Ben Stowe's ice cream refrigerator
cable samples,
and now we're doing cable bucket. Let's go.
Yeah, but listen, here's why we have to keep this short, because I love doing the show and I love our viewers, but it is season 2 of Andor tonight, so
no. We got priorities. Right, yeah. So the idea is use the right rig for the gig, and make the sound go towards the people, and it depends. Have I gotten pretty much all of our things done?
I think you just summarized the last 400 shows.
Yeah, we're good. Yep.
So let's cover some new ground then. All right.
So cables. This has come up because of there's a lot of confusion when it comes to the difference between audio and electric cables and what we can do with those and what we can't do with those, and when there's just so much. So let's start at the beginning. What do people need to know?
Well, I think the first thing you should know is that not all cables are created equal. And people say really uninformed things like copper is copper. And I suppose on an atomic elemental level, that's true, but that's about where it ends. People will say, well, it doesn't really matter and this and that. You can't hear a difference, and maybe you can't hear the difference, but your hearing doesn't mean there isn't a difference.
Sure.
Some people can, and certainly you can measure, but there's a lot of reasons, why you would use a quality cable over a non-quality cable, reliability, length of service, how long you're going to own it, that sort of thing. But I think the moral of the story is that not all cables are created equal. And our friend Rachel Lynch did a great video where she cut open a bunch of cables. And as you saw from my bucket, I have no shortage of cables. And over a 30-year career, I've seen a lot of cables. I've been in a lot of classes and a lot of trainings where we've seen the difference in performance between certain cables, be it, Cat 6A for video and whatnot. But today, I think really specifically, I want to talk about some of the really common cable types that are used by DJs.
Yeah.
And then I want to address a question that was on an industry forum recently, which is, can you run signal and signal from an XLR and power side by side? So we'll come back to that question. But I think the first thing we're going to do, if you'll just give me free reign, is I just want to show the insides of a few different types of cables, because on the outside, they all kind of look the same. They're all, black rubber jacket or rubberish, right? So let's start by looking at a couple of XLR cables, a couple of audio signal cables, and I won't name any names. I'd like to, but I won't. And we'll start with a couple of these, which look pretty common. These are very widely distributed brands and cables, ones you find a lot, ones that people talk about having a lifetime guarantee. And it reminds me of the Tommy Boy quote.
Let's hold on. You said these are for XLRs. Now let's kind of really break this down for somebody who's maybe watching this for the first time and learning about this. XLR means what, and how many contact points would there be, or how many contacts, i.e. wires, are running through those?
Well, I'm going to give you two answers. I'm going to give you the right answer, and then I'm going to give you the answer that I think you want. which is also right. It's just not the whole answer.
Mhm.
So XLR actually is the connector only. It's from the family of X-type connectors, L for latching and R for rubber gasket. And this is sort of an evolution of the original Canon X connectors. But that's what we typically call an XLR, is something that looks like this.
Mhm.
And in the professional audio realm, they have three conductors, but XLRs actually come in a wide variety, up to seven, I think. 3-pin, 4-pin, 5-pin, 6-pin, 7-pin. 4-pin is very common for intercom headsets. It was also used on stage scrollers. 5-pin, very common for DMX, of course. 6-pin for 2-channel intercom. Anyway, so there's lots of different types of XLR and uses. But in professional audio, the 3-pin XLR is most common. And confusingly enough, that connector is also often used for DJ lighting, DMX. Even though the DMX standard calls for 5-pin, it's very common to see a 3-pin XLR connector
Right.
used for DMX lighting. But there, the difference is what's inside the cable. A DMX cable is built different from an audio cable, and they shouldn't be used interchangeably.
Okay, now let's dig into the wires.
All right, so now let's get into that. What's inside the cable, right? So, I think let's take these three cable examples, and you can see probably they all look kind of the same.
Yep.
This one probably looks a little bigger, right?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna make you full screen.
All right, let's go full screen. Bigger, go bigger.
You're good.
Okay, we there?
Yep.
All right. So, and if we look at the ends of these, you can see maybe, it might be tough to pick out the differences, but there is some. Let's look at the inside. So there are a few different types of shields, and this is what we call a spiral shield, because it is literally just spiraled around. And if you imagine a shield as kind of what the name implies, something that's designed to protect you from something, this shield is doing a pretty mediocre job of that, really. It's if you were expecting this to protect you from, arrows or something in the medieval times, you wouldn't feel very good about that, right? Well, I think we could say the same thing for an audio signal. And then inside we've got these conductors, and we can see that they have a little bit of a twist to them, which is good, but we'll look at something else here in a second. It's going to be much different. And then we can also see this one is also not very good. Yet this is a cable that a lot of people buy because it's very widely distributed by a national name, and it has a lifetime guarantee. But you're basically buying a piece of crap. It really is just garbage, in my opinion. And then you could take a look at this one, and you can see there's a pretty substantive difference in the shielding here.
Sure.
I mean, hopefully that's focusing well for you.
Yep. You can see the difference between a braided. Now, correct. Is that a copper braid? It's certainly a different color.
It is. It's a tinned copper braid.
Okay.
And I got into an argument with a guy online one time about that, which was really funny because I'm the guy that designed this cable, and he was arguing with me, and I'm like, I literally designed it. Like, I'm literally the guy that it doesn't matter. Anyway, yeah. So
I bet he doesn't like ice cream either. So, hey.
Yeah,
we question a lot of the choices in life when they don't like ice cream, I'm saying.
So it is a tinned copper braid. So it looks like a different color, but it is in fact copper. It is a 95% tinned copper braid. That's pretty much the highest you can get. And as I sort of let the cat out of the bag, I designed this cable, but anyway, this is our cable. This is the NLFX Platinum Series cable.
There it is.
And inside is very different, and I've got another one I've got stripped out here, and I want to kind of show you that one. So a couple things. One is the conductors inside the cable, they lay twisted together so that we have common mode rejection. I'm going to untwist them here. Two, we have a separate drain wire coming in here so that we can keep our shield intact. We have that really nice tight braid. Inside our DMX cable, we also add a foil shield, because of the higher frequencies that DMX operates in, but in an audio signal that isn't necessary. So anyway, that I think really highlights the differences in what you get inside the cable. A couple other meaningful differences here. Again, we could get into the real electrical properties of everything, but at risk of sounding glib, size matters. And our cable is a 20 gauge, so it's larger than the 24 gauge conductors in those other two cables.
Sure.
And then we could get into a few other nuanced things that are just overall construction that maybe don't have much to do with its ability to carry an audio signal, but just keep it alive. You can run over our cable. There's a video of our cable being used in a parade, miles of parade floats and everything else, fire trucks and go-karts driving over it. And we just built it to, one of the worst things, honestly, are the hard 4-inch casters from large road cases and things.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, they have a very high amount of concentrated weight. So we had to build it to withstand that, And I just kind of want to continue my nerdy little rant. So stop me at any time because I'm going to move to power cables and then we're going to put the two together.
Yeah. Well, let's get there and then we'll work our way around.
And hopefully some of our viewers have some questions. I know that our some friends shared this. I know Rachel did. And so if you're watching and you have some questions or comments, please feel free to share them. The way you're laughing tells me somebody does have a comment.
Well, no, he doesn't have a question. It's just that, Eric mentions he's the guy that taught Ben about wires.
Oh, sure. Eric who? No, I'm serious. I'm just curious, but anyway.
I can see parts of.
Oh, okay.
I'm guessing it's our Eric from it does the KJ chat.
Oh, okay, yeah. He definitely did teach me about wires. I just want to make sure it's the right one.
Yeah,
so,
there.
So this is a quality, a good SJOOW power cord.
Okay.
This is a quality one, and certainly there are the thermoplastic cables, and this is not a bad power cable by any means. But what I want to point out is that inside this power cable there are simply 3 conductors.
Yeah.
Our line conductor, our neutral, and our ground.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Okay. So whenever an electrical current travels through a cable, it generates an electromagnetic field. And this field can be inducted onto adjacent conductors. We call that EMI. And this is exactly how transformers work. You have an induction that occurs. There's galvanic isolation that prevents the direct flow of current, but you have an inducted flow of current from one side of the transformer to the other. And that can also occur when we don't want it to, when our wires run side by side.
Mm-hmm.
And this can manifest itself a few ways. If you're using a non-contact voltage tester, you could see a false positive because it could detect an inducted voltage, albeit with a very, very low potential for amperage, but it still would represent a potential there in that wire. And more meaningfully to us, noise, buzz, hum,
sure.
Things that we don't want in our audio signal. So as a general rule, doing something like this, where we have power and signal together in one cable, would be a bad idea on the face of it. Right off the get-go, that's probably not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And you're probably thinking, but Ben, I own your hybrid cables where you do exactly that. And suddenly there's all kinds of viewers out there who are rethinking, wait, but you sold me this cable.
Most of their life decisions right now, yes.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, we trusted you, Ben, and you sold us this cable.
And they're like, what? You mean Star Wars isn't real? No, it is. Don't worry.
Very real.
It's very real.
So let me explain. Because we're aware of the inherent risks of doing that, our hybrid cables are built different. And I really, really wish that I had a sample of some of the cheap hybrid type cables that are out there. My cat is now eating my bucket of wires, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You're going to regret that later. I'll just tell you that right now. That's not going to come out well. Right. So, you can buy these, and I don't want to pick on anybody, but, you can buy these imported versions and they're cheaper. And if you cut one open, you would find out immediately why. And I know this for a fact because I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
We've had people send them back for repair. thinking they were ours. We got it. We're like, that's not our cable. So I guess if anybody has one and you're feeling froggy, go cut it and take a look inside and share with the class. But I'll show you ours, and I guarantee you those are all going to look. They're going to look different than ours. There's very, very much a real difference inside. It's not snake oil. This isn't, hype. This is just plain engineering and physics at its finest.
Yeah.
And for all of you who own our hybrid cables and you're saying, yeah, I don't have any noise problems. I don't have any, you're about to see why. So if we were to, or there's another guy who's just asked the question, and it's good to ask questions. That's what forums are for. But he said, well, what if I just taped my cables together? What if I took my mic cable and my power cable, and we're going to pick on the cheap mic cable and the power cable. What if I just taped those together?
Yeah.
Not a good idea. Not a good idea, because there's really not good shielding here, and there's nothing really to prevent that, that induction, right? So without any further ado, let's take a look at it. And I stripped these out a little bit earlier today for you, but this is, tell me when you can read that.
Yeah, there it is. MLFX Professional Audio Power Cable. Yeah,
yeah, this is our cable. Okay. This is our cable, except no substitutes. The end. It is made for us and exclusively for us, and it's our cable. So, we don't buy it from China, which, by the way, which right now means you're not paying a ton of money in tariffs. You're just still buying quality. It's in there, right? It's always been made in the U.S., and it's our intention for that to continue to be the case. But inside, you're going to see some significantly different things. One, and we'll just take these one at a time. Let's take a look at the power. So the first thing you see, we've got those power conductors twisted together.
Yeah.
The second thing you see is a drain wire in the power, which...
You said you used a drain wire. Why is it referred to that?
Basically, think about what electricity really wants to do at its core. It basically lives to go to ground, or, the 0 volt potential earth, right? So you sometimes hear things called a shunt or a drain or a ground. Functionally, for today's purposes, it's all the same.
Yep.
So it's to get any unwanted current out of there, basically, to give the shield a return path to get rid of that stuff. And speaking of that, you'll notice that down here at the bottom, we also have, I want to give away the next one yet, we have a shield. A shielded power cable. Why would we do that? Well, because we know there's noise. We know that there's a magnetic field, and we want it to stay in there, and we don't want it to go away.
Sure.
So we've got that drain wire and that shield to prevent that from going across to our signal conductor. And then, of course, we spent a fair amount of time, making sure this thing was pretty tough, but also easy to coil. Engineering is a series of trade-offs, but we wanted a really long-lasting, reliable cable. Now, earlier, we looked at our Platinum Series 20 gauge mic cable, and we looked at what makes it different from
others.
Piece of crap. Let's call it what it is. I'm done being nice. I've been nice for 30 years. I'm done with it. I'm just going to call it like it is. Well, we couldn't use the 20 gauge conductors inside our hybrid cable because it would make them too big.
Okay.
So, and we also are limiting the length of these because at some point you're going to lose the battle with that induction, right? So we make our hybrid cables basically at a max of 75 feet, and really 50 feet is kind of where we like to call it quits.
Okay.
Whereas we're comfortable making this cable up to 800 feet. So, we're really shortening that distance and saying, there's loss of the power over the power cable inside. We don't want to get too carried away there. And there's, risks for induction. So let's just keep these at a length where we know you're not going to have any problems.
Sure.
So a lot of things are adding up here to a successful result. It's not just one thing that means that this works really well. We talked about the difference in the power cable itself inside there. And you can see those kind of that twisting if you look at the jacket down here a little bit. But then also we kept the same construction properties for the audio cable that you find in our 20 gauge Platinum Series mic cable. So we still have that ridiculously awesome braid in here. Even though these are 24 gauge inside, you can see that very consistent twisting for common mode rejection. So basically we took all the good stuff about this, used the Rick Moranis shrink ray thing and shrunk it just a little bit, and stuffed it in here next to a shielded power cable. And that is what makes our hybrid cable different than everybody else's.
Very nice. So you said 50 feet, but truthfully, how many DJs are actually, when they're wanting to utilize that technology, are going even that far?
Yeah, it's that we don't sell very many 50 footers. The most common lengths are 15 and 25, without a doubt. And by the way, one of the things that's really nice is we can custom make these. So we have people who say, I need the power a little bit longer. I want the XLR a little bit longer. My speaker's a little weird, or I got something custom going on. That's another one of the beautiful things about, making your stuff right here in the US. It's made about 50 feet from my office. I can walk back there and say, hey guys, we need to tweak this a little bit. Right. Although we're starting to spread out the manufacturing, specializing a little bit with some of the different lines, and the idea there is to speed things up.
Sure.
So to try to get stuff out the door faster. But anyway, moral of the story, we can make a custom configuration. So, while we have the standard hybrids available with roughly a 12-inch fan on the mixer end and an 18-inch fan on the speaker end, we can customize those.
What do you mean by fan?
Where it splits. So
Thank
we
you.
would call this the fan. There's the fan. So this would be about a 12-inch fan right here.
Sure.
This is a really, really, really old one. Really old one. I think an early prototype, maybe even. It's been around a minute, but anyway, so just fun to think back of the evolution of getting these to market.
So now you showed us maybe a prototype one, but that was a black cable, and white speakers have become a thing. Are you able to do these hybrid in a variety of colors or a different color than black?
Yes, we can. So what we do right now is, for our standard hybrids, we use a black mesh over this white cable, which gives it a platinum look because it's our platinum series. So clever enough, right? What we can do, though, is to use a white mesh over that and then put a white mesh over this overall body. So it uses like a snakeskin mesh over the whole body, and then white mesh over the interior cables, and then white heat shrink. And it's pretty white. We'll call it stormtrooperish. The connectors are still black, and it has a slightly light gray tinge to it, but it works very well, and people are very happy with it.
And it would definitely help in those situations where they're wanting to have their white speakers out there, because it's a very white wedding-esque type look.
Exactly. Nobody is looking that close. I'll tell you, they're not. Let me just pull one up, though. I can pull it up on our website, and I can show you what it looks like, I believe. Oh, well, and then remind me, I'll show you something else real quick here, too. Let's just go to our website, I guess.
Yeah, I just actually shared the link for the cables in the chat there for those of you out there watching. That's exactly what that link takes you to.
Yep. So here's our hybrid cable. And there you can see that slightly platinum color on there. And you can see that we can choose what we want for connectors. Those images are a little distorted. I got to talk to marketing about that. But we could say we just want a traditional 515p and an XLR female, and we want that to go to an IEC or a 515R or a True One or a PowerCon Blue. Let's take PowerCon Blue. And an XLR, we want that to be 10 feet. So very easy to just configure what you want from that. And then we can say, well, we want this to be white. And I thought the picture changed to white, but I guess it doesn't. So I'll have to show you another time. But worth noting that just type in hybrid and we can find it. There's a few lights that are hybrids, but also we have some specialized hybrids. And here you can see where these lengths are different. Where the XLR female is a little bit longer than the power, and the male here is a little bit longer than the power. This is specifically designed for the sub 15AX. So. So moral of the story is, we have a little worksheet. We can customize those to whatever you want as well. Just give us a little lead time to get them built.
And of course, Robin brings up the importance of having a moat tester. Just because.
And you know what? Honestly, it's just a thing that should be in everybody's toolbox. I can share that real quick. Super easy to find on the NLFX site. Just type in Moat, and there it is, the mother of all testers. This product is made overseas, but we have stock, and we've not raised the price on the stock we have. We're not trying to take advantage of anybody. Obviously, when that stock runs out, we will have to raise the price if the tariffs persist. But for now, you can get one for $69. Free shipping, includes a carry bag, a user's manual, a couple of test probes, and our appreciation.
So jumping back to the hybrid cables now, a 15 to 20 foot is kind of a semi-common length, I would guess, for a lot of DJs out there. Is that going to be able to carry enough amperage to my speakers to be able to do the job if I'm running my Evolve 70s or my Evolve 50s, whatever?
Yeah, no question. We use a 14 gauge cable in there, again, for portability and size, but the current carrying capacity of that is fairly significant over those distances. 15, 20 feet, you can carry far more than the current draw from any of those speakers. There are certainly speakers that are, bigger and more powerful and maybe are looking for larger current draws. Maybe something like RCF 9006. If you were really to run that at full tilt, we'd probably say, I don't know if I'd do that with a hybrid, but again, time and place and situation for almost any realistic DJ application, the hybrid cables are up to the task.
Yeah.
And if in doubt, just ask. Again, we don't just buy stuff from China and stick our name on it. It's stuff that we were involved in the engineering and we're building it. We know this stuff, and just ask us. Say, I'm looking to do this. Is your cable up to the task? And we'll let you know. We're certainly not going to direct you to do anything that we think is a bad idea. That isn't good for anybody.
So somebody's asking about what would be some of the symptoms of those wires, of having two wires close together. So
you could have a buzz or a hum, and that's that 60 cycle, the 60 hertz of the electrical current. AC, 120 volt AC operates at 60 cycles in the United States. Other countries, it varies, 50 or 60, whatever. Excuse me. So, you could have that. You could have, signal degradation. And again, unfortunately, with a lot of these cheap cables, what you have is neither side is really good. And then you stick two bad ones together and, good things definitely are not going to happen there.
Just got their shipment in of platinum cables. And they want to know what's the best way to you'd recommend for keeping them coiled nicely.
Over under. Use the over under coiling
but then
method.
As far as then the Velcro or tie lines or
whatever your preference is. I use a lot of uncoated cotton tie line. Velcro is great. Some people like the bongo ties. That doesn't really matter. The key thing is that you're coiling them correctly. And the hybrid cables obviously come with a factory coil from the machine when you first get them. So you're gonna have to work that out a little bit. Nice warm day or just a couple of uses. One of the great things about our cables, though, is we built them to last literally forever, and we guarantee that they'll last forever. So we actually built them to get better the more you use them. They'll coil easier and easier every time. They're just gonna become more pliable and more usable as you go.
Todd mentions that he's got his NLFX hybrid cables, and are there any concerns using those with a gas generator or one of the battery-powered little battery banks?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the power source really is irrelevant as long as it's a quality power source. I think the concerns would stem from the source itself, but there's nothing really that changes in my mind for using a hybrid with a power bank or a generator. Just make sure that you're using those generators properly. Read all the instructions for grounding and bonding, and just follow all the manufacturer's recommendations, of course. But no, I don't have any concerns with using hybrid in that scenario.
Over under.
Yep. That's what it's called. It is.
Yeah, the over under. That's so my little story about over under is that at the post office there's a vacuum that has like a 50-foot cable on it, probably 40 feet. And it was a mess. It would have been something I should have taken a picture because I think it would have been a cringe night for Ben Stowe to see this. After pulling it out, over under, a dozen times. It's back and it looks beautiful. After working with a cable, and as you just literally said, pulled it out, and it headed outside on a sunny day last summer to warm it up nicely, and then you worked it out, and then continued to that, and now you would never know what a mess it was at one time.
That's the key. Take them outside, lay them out in the sunshine, let them get nice and pliable. Sometimes the conductors inside get twisted really bad, and then they're kind of gone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm glad you're able to save that cable.
Yeah.
So start out good, and you never have to worry about it.
Yeah, so. Precisely. Somebody's asking about the cable requirements for passive versus active speakers. I don't know if that really.
Yeah, we could touch on that for a second. So an active speaker has the amplifier built in, so the signal that we're carrying is just line level audio, and that's where that balanced line level comes from. A passive speaker is carrying the signal from an amplifier, so it's only going to be probably 2 conductors or 4 if it's biamped or whatever, but it's going to use a different connector like a speak-on, and so that's really significantly different. You wouldn't be running power to a passive loudspeaker. You wouldn't be using our hybrid cable for that.
And you wouldn't, if there's even from the mixer to the crossover to the amplifier, there really just isn't a logical way to implement a hybrid cable into that.
Yeah, exactly. Different scenario entirely.
And then of course that cable going from the amplifier to that passive speaker. Now we're getting into where gauge probably makes a much bigger difference in that realm compared to the gauge for that line level going to our active speaker.
Yeah, no question. And I've got all kinds of charts and things on that, calculators and graphs. If anybody is running passive speakers and they really want to know, because there's a lot of things that happen, not only the loss in the cable due to impedance, because you have a certain impedance over the length of the cable, and that's relative to the ratio of the impedance of the loudspeakers it's connected to. So, if we have a cable that's using has 1 ohm of impedance and we're driving a 2 ohm load, you've got a significant amount of loss disproportionately in the cable, right? But there's also a lot of other factors like damping factor and things like that how does that amplifier control the movement of that driver? And it's an entirely different show, to be honest with you. But yeah, a completely different set of rules, and for most DJs no longer applicable.
Yeah.
But hey, I love a good passive system. We just did a show on that not long ago. So if you're still running passive and you've got questions on cables, we're still your guys.
Yep, you can definitely help with that. So excellent. Well, thank you guys for being with us tonight. There's some good chat in the room, the chat rooms there, both on Facebook and YouTube. So thank you for being there, everyone. Yeah, I think they are good. Oh, they want to see Ben demonstrate the over under.
Oh, okay. I could probably do it with my. I have a very short cable on my desk here. Just happens to be hanging out. But I'll make you a trade. I'll demonstrate the over under. If everybody, I'll just take it your word here, honor system at home. You just recite these 3 words when we talk about cables. 4 words? All right. Anyway, no. 4 words. Yeah, it's 4 words. Words is hard. Okay.
Words be hard.
The difference is real. Okay, guys, gals, when you see this nonsense on the forum and people saying completely unhinged and uneducated things like copper is copper, that's bonkers. That's like saying all cars are cars because they're made out of steel. That's ridiculous. So the difference is real. Anyway, all right, you've earned it.
Okay.
I trust you. Okay. So over under, I'm going to do it this way. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to start this way with the coil in my left hand. When you get good, you can actually do it right-handed, left-handed. You can actually do it upside down, right side up. You can pick up a coil that's half coiled and finish the coil, no matter which way they started. But we'll start with the basics. So I'm going to just start with this coil here, and then my first coil, I'm going to take a. So I get this.
There you go. Yep. Just give me a little
Start of
more.
a slight clockwise twist, and it's going to fall it's going to go over. And you can see how that kind of comes over here. I'm trying to do this small so it fits in front of me. And then this might be the hardest thing I've ever done, try to over under with my fingertips. But anyway, so now I'm going to take this one and I'm going to go the opposite direction, and it is going to go under.
No, you got enough wire to do it.
Yep. And then one more over. And there's my over under. I've never done an over under on a 5-inch coil before.
So do you
But-
start from which end of the cable when you've got an XLR? Say if you got a 50 or 100 foot XLR, which end do you start with?
Whichever one I grab.
Okay, I've wondered if there was, as I've done this every time I do it, it's like, I need to be more consistent. So then when I go to throw it, or I go to do that it's consistent. But that would be, it's whichever end.
Well, the key there is just to make sure you uncoil it from the right end.
Yeah.
Otherwise, anybody who's ever used over under knows if you pull it through the middle, you pretty soon you start ending up with knots.
Yeah, knots every 6 feet. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So make sure you pull that coil out from the right end. It doesn't really matter which end you start with, but it's very common for the tie or the Velcro to be on the male end. And the reason for that is the female end goes into microphones and things, and that looks kind of dumb.
Yeah, nobody wants to see the big old Velcro strap hanging from the.
Exactly. So
why is
anyway,
the singer distracted?
This was fun. I got to play with tools today,
Yeah.
and sharp objects. It was great stripping all this cable out for you guys. So
See,
thanks for
I told
watching.
everyone at the beginning of the show you were working hours in advance getting ready. Don't let that bucket segment fool you. Ben was
Minutes. It was for
minutes.
sure a solid several minutes.
several, at least a dozen seconds, maybe more.
We workshopped a few different things. He was going to tell everybody that I was stripping for the show, but we felt nobody would actually watch at that point.
Yeah,
So,
that would have probably made the ratings do something.
I bet you could do an OnlyFans though, and do I don't know.
You never know. You could have the whole OnlyFans just stripping wire, and there could be a market for it. You never know.
Somebody's probably into it, and I'm not judging. That's
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, it's kind of like popping zits. Taking the shielding off wire. People would be like, "Oh, that was just so satisfying watching that." Okay, that's weird. That's just weird when I said it. Okay.
Listen, if that's your thing, that's cool. It takes all of God's children, but I don't get that. I'm gonna go watch Andor instead.
Yeah, it's time to go do that. So thank you guys again for being there. The links, go check out the website and you can get yourself some hybrid cables in the color you need so you are ready for the upcoming wedding season. We'll be back. I think next week we'll be back again, Ben. Are we good?
Yeah, as far as I know. Let me
Okay.
see, what is this week?
Next week should be the 29th. Yep.
I should be around.
Okay.
No, I'm in Memphis. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm in Memphis next week.
Okay. Well, then we'll probably be back in a couple of weeks then, but just watch the Sunday email. We'll have the link when we are ready to go for the next show. So we'll catch you next time. DJNTV.com/chilled at the top of the hour. They'll be in the chill room. Go hang out and have a good time tonight, and we'll catch you next time. Good night.